Richard Cromer, born 13th of September 1927 in Carlisle, PA, fought World War II in the Army, was a commissioner. This interview is taking place in Mechanicsburg, PA. My name is Vidya Lala. I'm the interviewer. Also present is Amisha Lala, Rohan Lala, and Nita Lala. Right. What is the highest rank or grade that you held?
The highest rank in the service?
Yes.
First lieutenant.
Right. Who was the troop or battery which you served in?
Well, I served in an organization called the Army Security Agency, and it was a unit of its own.
Who was your commander?
Good gracious, girl. You realize how long ago that was? I don't know. He was a captain, but I don't know his name anymore. That's a long time ago.
All right.
Yeah.
Where did you serve during the battalion, regiment, or division?
A battalion, a regiment, or division? No, I was attached to the 5th Air Force.
Right.
But I was in the Army, not the Air Force, so it was just an attached organization. And we were attached because we used their facilities.
Okay.
That's all.
Right. What was the date of your enlistment?
February 1 of 1945.
How old were you?
Just turned 18, yeah.
And how long were you, what was the length of your service?
Well, I was in for a year and a half in the regular Army, and when I was discharged, I was a sergeant, and then I came back and I had the GI Bill, which gave me 4 years of college education, and I joined the ROTC there, and when I was finished with the ROTC, I was commissioned as second lieutenant.
What was the place of enlistment?
What was the what?
The place of enlistment.
The initial enlistment?
Yes.
Harrisburg, Pennsylvania. Yeah.
Did you have any previous occupation?
Occupation?
Yeah, like a job.
Gosh gracious, yes. I had a lot of jobs as a kid, part-time jobs, you know, when you're growing up. And, oh man, I had multiple jobs. You'd get something that would be run 3 or 4 months, and or during the summer months between school. 1 year in college, I shoveled coal. At those days, they had a lot of coal burning furnaces, and this gentleman came down from the coal mines, and then I went to work for him, unloading coal trucks at 25 cents an hour. So I don't think you'd find too many work that kind of a wage anymore. Do you?
No, probably not.
No, yeah. But just a lot of part-time jobs until I graduated. Yeah.
How and why did you join the service?
How what?
How and why did you join the service? Were you drafted, or did you?
It was a combination. Yeah, I saw the draft board coming, so I enlisted.
All right.
A lot of guys did that then.
At that time, did you feel that the draft was necessary and fair?
Yes. Well, you know, who wants to be drafted? But it was during wartime, and you had to do something to help save your country. So I don't think the draft was fair because there were a number of guys that found reasons why they didn't pass their physicals and make it into the service. You know, But that's any kind of a deal you do. There's always a little side kick there someplace, right?
Yeah. Has your opinion of World War II draft changed since then?
My opinion of the draft?
Yes.
Well, to be very honest with you, I don't think there is a draft anymore.
Yeah, I don't think there's much.
I don't know of a draft. If it is, they miss me, but I don't. I think a draft is a necessary evil in order to build your military strength up. And if somebody asked me, I would say that every young person, including both sexes, should serve at least 2 years in the service. You gain a world of experience that you just don't have when you're not there. Okay?
Describe the circumstances in which you first heard of the attack on Pearl Harbor.
Oh, wow. I think I was downtown Carlisle at a little shop called Chocolate Shop where all the kids gathered, and just happened to be there, and then we heard this news come across the radio, and we couldn't believe what they were saying, because Orson Welles pulled a stunt a short time before that, I think it was, where he said about that there was an there was a invasion of aliens coming into this country. Well, it was a stunt, but he had everybody scared to death. But that was back then, so you weren't quite sure what was true or what wasn't true until you saw it on the screen. That's a movie screen, not a TV screen. Yeah. They didn't quite have TV yet then, right?
Yeah. What were your initial reactions to entering the military service? Like, with family and friends and knowing that you were going to leave them and stuff?
Well, I don't know. I don't think there was any objections. Everybody was in accord that we should be doing something to help our country. You know, women worked their back ends off during that war too, in war jobs that because of most of the men being in the service couldn't be done without the women, and they did. They did a lot of work there.
Where did you train as a recruit?
Where did I
train as a recruit?
Oh, I'm little.
Sorry, no.
No, well, I got a hearing problem in that left ear there. I was down to Fort McClellan, Alabama, which was an infantry camp at that time. I don't know if it's still in existence or not, but that's where I did my initial training.
At what posts were you stationed at during the stateside service?
Wow. Well, I went to school. After I finished my basic training, I went to school in Warrenton, Virginia, at a place called Vin Hill Farms, which was a schooling for specialists. And I left there and went to went to California as a delay en route, I guess they called it, of going overseas. So we went out there and left out of Camp Stoneman, California, sailed out of there, and then took one of those slow banana boats over. Yeah.
What was your opinion of the weapons you saw and used in the service?
Well, they were... if you look at today's weapons, they were quite dated. But at the time, that's what we had, and we used them, and they were effective. Yeah. But any weapon that does the job it's intended for is just not. I'm not sure about all that, but somebody has to be out there and do the shooting and the killing if you got to win a war. And our objective at that time was to win the war. There was a lot of unhappiness going on during that period of time.
What were your opinions of the equipment, clothing, and rations you were issued?
Well, what could you do about it? I mean, that's what we got. And the clothing was warm. The food was all right. Most of the time it was powdered food. And you learned to eat powdered milk and powdered eggs and powdered potatoes, and, you know, all those kind of things. But at least we had something to eat, so that was the main part. I have no objections to it. I mean, the only objection, you know, if you didn't like it, you didn't eat it. And if you didn't eat it, you didn't last long, right?
Yep.
Yeah.
What did you think of the quality of leadership while you were in the service?
Well, anybody can be questioned as to their abilities. Harry Truman didn't like General MacArthur. Yeah, I stopped thinking that there. He didn't like General MacArthur. He was a damn good general. But same way with General Patton in Africa with the Third Army. But those guys had a job to do, and they did it. So, you know, you got to do it. Yeah.
What did you think of the discipline at the time?
Well, as I said at the beginning, I think everybody should have some military training because of discipline. I think if we had more discipline today, we wouldn't have all the problems we've got. But that's my personal feelings. So we had a couple of, during basic training, we had a couple of platoon sergeants that were tougher than nails. But they had a job to do, and that was to get us tough, too. So that's part of the training.
What forms of off-duty recreation were common? Like, what did you do in your leisure time?
I don't know. In basic training, there wasn't much because you were gone all the time in training. Unfortunately, I learned to smoke in the Army because you would have break time. And of course, the break time was, let's grab a smoke. Well, you know, everybody smoked, so you smoked too. It was a bad habit to get into, but at the time it was something that was accepted when we didn't realize what the dangers of it was then. And but we had a PX, and you could go there and buy things, various things when you had a couple of hours off. When I went to school in Virginia, I was close enough that I could hitchhike home over the weekend, and I'd get a weekend pass. In those days, it was safe to get out on the road and hitchhike, you know. I wouldn't want to try it today. No way. But and then you could come home and there'd always be something going on at home, chase the girls around or whatever, you know.
How adequate was the medical care?
How?
How adequate was
Adequate. Well, I guess it was all right. I didn't. It certainly isn't. It wasn't then like it is today. Those days, when a guy got wounded out in the field, you know, it could take days before he could get back. Today, where they fly him with those choppers and pick a guy up and get him back to a major hospital within a couple of hours, which is saving these guys now. I don't know. I didn't have any gripe with the medical deal.
Was drinking a problem in your unit? Was drinking a problem in your unit?
No, not then.
Right. How about like drug use?
We didn't even hear of drugs. Yeah. I mean, it might have been around, but we didn't. I didn't. The only one I ever heard of one time was there was a band, and they had a drummer called Gene Krupa. I don't know if you ever heard of him. And that boy, he could play drums like you wouldn't believe. And he played with Harry James and some of those big bands in the days. And they joked about he must have been smoking marijuana because nobody could beat a drum like he did. But I don't know. I never saw him smoke marijuana. I wouldn't even know what it looked like if I did see him smoking it. So, but we didn't. I don't. I really can't recall of ever even hearing anything about drugs in those days. Yeah.
That's good.
Not today. You know, you can walk down the street and somebody taps you on the elbow. Now they tell me, right? Yeah.
Yeah.
Just don't get involved with them.
Yeah. What military slang words or phrases were popular during your military service?
Kilroy was here. You ever hear that one?
Yep.
Okay. Kilroy was here. Well, of course, it was always the draft dodgers, they called them, right? The guys who skipped out of the area. I don't know what else.
Did you note any instance of ethnic, racial, or religious discrimination?
Well, now you're leading me into a bad question. In those days, we had segregation of black and white troops. And the black troops were basically into transportation. In the States, I didn't run into it, but when I was overseas, we hit a couple of places where there were transportation corps guys, and they were all black, but I don't know, maybe I looked at it differently, but I didn't see any kind of problems. I understand that there were a lot of problems with segregation. I didn't personally see it. So I can't talk about something I didn't see, right?
Yep. How was the morale of your unit?
Good. Oh, go ahead. Finish your question.
It's okay. I was gonna say, like, from getting mails from home and.
Oh well, mail call was always a challenge. You wanted to see who got the most letters, and make sure you got one. And every now and then, a box would come in with some goodies in it, and you better well share those, because if you didn't, you lost the box. But I remember my mom sent me a box, and I would say about getting soap was a difficult program. And bless her heart, she sent me a big box of ivory flakes. Well, there was nowhere I could use ivory flakes, right? So we needed bar soap, but she didn't realize that. So we passed that out to the hospital corps. They liked ivory snow, I guess it was called. I don't know, flakes or something. Yeah. But anyway, it was a powder type of thing, and we needed bar soap. But the one good soap at the time was Hershey's chocolate soap. I don't know if you ever knew that they made soap or not.
No, I didn't.
They had some kind of a byproduct from the coca, and they made big. Well, they were bars about yay big like that. That I'm sure the government must have paid for them somehow. Maybe Hershey donated them. I don't know. But we went overseas when we each got a big bar of that chocolate soap or coca soap. That's what they call it, coca soap. And but you know, anything you got from home is always welcome. Yeah.
What effect did combat have on the morale?
Well, I don't know. I wasn't in combat. I mean, everybody despised the fact that, you know, you get your head blown off. But nobody liked it. But again, it was something that had to be done. Yeah.
What factors helped improve the morale?
Well, more meal, right? And every now and then they brought in entertainers from the States, and they put on a show for you, like Bob Hope, those kind of things. You know, they were pretty good. But that was basically about it, what you had. Yeah.
How and to what extent were religious convictions expressed in your unit?
Religious?
Yes. Were there any religious?
Oh, I don't know. I don't. I don't know how to answer that. I don't recall seeing any kind of problems with it. I mean, you went to chapel or you didn't go to chapel. It was that pretty simple. And when we got into Japan in the occupation, there was a Nisi woman that worked there, got a job on the base, and her husband, she was an American. I said Nisi, but she was basically American. And her husband was a minister, came over from Japan right before Pearl Harbor. And I don't remember now. You know, he met her here and married her, yeah. But when he went back to Japan, they threw him in prison because he had married an American, and they had some pretty rough times during that war, even though they were native Japanese. And a couple of us guys from the base learned about this little church there in the town, and we went down with basketballs and baseballs, and we made ice cream one time. They never had ice cream, so it was a neat affair. And the kids, I mean, boy, you talk about kids, they pal in there by the hundreds, and no animosity. The only place you run into trouble would be if you went into some of the little country towns, if you were walking around, and the old Japanese weren't happy with us. But, you know, I always had a comeback. You started it, we finished it. What else can you say, right?
Well,
yeah.
Did you observe any newspaper or radio war correspondence?
Did I do who?
Did you get any information from
Did I?
newspapers and radios?
Well, there was a newspaper. I think it was called Army Times. But every now and then that thing would come out. It wasn't something that every week you had, you know. No. But I dealt with radio quite a bit. So when I had off, the last thing I wanted to do was turn the radio on and listen to it, right?
I understand. So you were not in combat?
No.
Okay. Did you go overseas?
Yes.
What were your feelings towards going overseas?
It was an experience. I don't know that I had any kind of problem with it. It was just happened to be that was part of the deal. That's what I trained for, and the job I trained for required that I go overseas. And we were replacing some of the guys that had been in heavy combat and wanted to get home. So our job was to replace them, let them come home, and we filled in for them.
Where did you go overseas? Like which countries?
Japan. I stopped on Guam. I stopped on Saipan. We stopped briefly in Honolulu, or not? Yeah, and just like that, the name left me. That'll come back. But when we came home, we had about 1,500 Hawaiian troops on, and I'll never forget. The skipper of the boat told us we were going to stop in Honolulu for one day and unload these troops. And for some strange reason, the boat broke down for about 7 days. So we had 7 wonderful days going there, going through Honolulu. Yeah. Now this was after the war there. You know, they'd started to clean up the island, but it was a nice little break. And some of that water down through that way gets a little rough too. So you enjoyed the calmness by not having the boat rocking all over the place, right?
Yeah.
You ever been on a big boat?
I don't think so.
Oh, okay.
No.
They can rock funny sometimes. They go forward and they go sideways, yeah.
Did you assist in the establishment of civil affairs government in liberating friendly countries?
No.
Okay.
That was on the other side where that developed more. I did travel through, we called it Hiroshima. Today these people call it Hiroshima. And Nagasaki, where the atomic bomb fell. And that was a horrendous mess there, but that thing saved one heck of a lot of lives.
What were your reactions to VJ Day, victory over Japan?
Wonderfully. Well, we're happy, right?
Yeah.
Sure. That meant we wouldn't have any 5 or 6 years to serve like some of those poor guys did, yeah.
How was the morale and discipline of your unit after the end of hostilities?
Well, that's hard to answer because I was just going through basic training at that point, and so I didn't have any. I mean, everybody had a job at that point of making it through basic training, so. Hard question to answer there.
Agreed. Do you remember any of the awards and decorations that you received? That's alright if you don't.
Good Conduct Medal, the Occupation of Japan. There was another one, and I can't think of what that was. I have to get my discharge papers out and look at that thing. I think that'll say it.
Do you think that the awards and decorations were distributed fairly?
I think so. I mean, it was pretty. What I saw was pretty pat. I mean, if you were in a certain theater, well, that's where you were, and then you got a ribbon or a medal for that. You know, if you climb out Fuji, well, you got a ribbon for that, I guess. I don't know. No, I think that was all pretty fair. Some guys wear, you know, you see these guys with about 400 ribbons on there, and you wonder how they could participate in all those things, but they were, I would guess that they were all fair.
Right. Describe your welcome home to the United States.
Oh my gracious, there was 50,000 people out there reading us. Now, by that time, you know, things were pretty settled down, and I don't know. It wasn't like VJ Day when everybody just literally tore New York City apart. When I come home, it wasn't like that at all. I was just happy to be home in one piece and get started with my life again. And
How long did you remain in the service after the end of hostilities?
Well, I was in the reserves for 11 years afterwards, and I got discharged with the term they used at the time. I was in grade too long, and they had an expression called "at the convenience of the government." They discharged you. So if you were not in a active reserve unit, why they discharged you.
Right. Do you remember the date and place of your discharge?
Sure. Yeah, I got discharged in Camp Stoneman, California, and it was I think it was July the 30th of 1947. Yeah. And that's where I got discharged from the service. My official discharge wasn't until 30 days later. We had a 30-day grace period there of being discharged out of the service.
What did you do after you were discharged?
Well, I went downtown and grabbed a great big steak and a milkshake. That's not what you want to hear. No. Well, I came back home and a group of us guys that all went into service together decided we were going to go back to school. And a local pastor in our Carlisle grabbed a bunch of 8 of us. And we went to Gettysburg, and he personally saw to it that we were all admitted. And today we might have a little problem with doing that. But regardless of grades or background, why, we are all admitted there, and I got a 4-year education because of my time in the service. Yeah.
Describe the ease or difficulty which you readapted to civilization.
I didn't have any difficulties. I thought it was pretty neat. No. I mean, you didn't have somebody yelling at you all the time, do this, do that, but that didn't bother me. No.
Before the war, did you graduate from high school?
Yes.
When?
When?
Yeah.
1945.
Right.
Yeah.
Did you go to college or trade school before the war?
Yeah, I put 1 semester in. And that's where I started with this ROTC program. And then when I turned 18, I knew that the greening wasn't far behind. So they let us finish, all of us that started, they let us finish that semester, and then we got our greenings. So at that point, I enlisted. And they gave us the option of staying on the draft or being enlisting. So I did.
What was the name of your college?
Gettysburg College.
Okay.
Yeah.
What degree were you pursuing?
I got Bachelor of Arts.
Okay. So you went to a college under the GI Bill?
Uh-huh.
What was the name of that school?
I just gave that to you, Gettysburg College. Yeah.
Okay, so you did under ROTC. Was there a degree attached to that?
To the ROTC?
Yeah, like for the college. Was there a degree? Did you also pursue art or?
A Bachelor of Arts from the college. No, not from the ROTC. Is that what you're asking me?
Yeah.
From the college, yeah. Now, my major was political science and economics. And for some strange reason, I ended up with a minor in mathematics and English literature. So, I don't know why, but I did.
What does the GI Bill mean to you?
Well, it meant an education for me. Paid my way through school and bought my books and gave me some spending money to pay for my room and board. Yeah. And at that time, I don't know if you looked at colleges recently, but I understand they're a little expensive. My tuition was $800 plus books and board, you know. But $800 is what it costed.
Wow. Did you join the National Guard or organized reserves after the war?
Yes. I joined the reserves.
Yeah.
Not the Guard.
For how long did you belong to the reserves?
11 years. Oh, wait a minute now, I see. Yeah, 11 years. I got, it was 1958 when they discharged me, you know. And that was a messed up affair. My job transferred me to Texas. And with my MOS background, I couldn't get a unit of what my specialty was. And all I could get into down there was field artillery, and I elected not to do that. So they elected not to keep me.
What was the... Identify your reserve unit.
Yeah. I don't know if we had a name. It was just Army Reserves. And at one time it was called an Army Security Unit, because at that time the War College, the Army War College at Carlisle, had a school there of the Army Security Agency, so it just fit. And we were just a reserve unit. There must have been a unit named to it. I don't know. I never... all I did was go to meetings, and being that I was an officer, I had to give lectures, and so that was it.
Okay. With whom do you feel most comfortable discussing your wartime experiences?
Well, with fellow veterans. Yeah.
Do you still keep in touch with friends from the war?
Not from my unit, I don't, no. Because aren't any of them around through here. Most of those guys were in California, from what I can gather. There was one guy that was in that unit with me, and he was from Mechanicsburg, but every now and then I'd call him, but that was it. But it's not like some of these guys that were in the Navy, they have ship reunions every year where these guys all get together and have a great big party. We didn't do that. You're quiet.
World War II was a significant national experience. What, if anything, did it teach you about America?
About who?
World War II was a very national experience. Did it teach you anything about America?
Oh, about America? Yeah. it taught me that we have the best country in the world. That's what, and in all due respect to where you came from, I'm not saying anything derogatory about that, but I'm a firm American, and I think we've got the best country in the world. We've got some lousy. Okay, I better not say that. Well, I get carried away.
Have you read any literature on World War II?
Read any literature?
Uh-huh.
Sure.
Do you agree with the messages that they portray?
Well, some of them were a little flamboyant, I guess. They were, it all depends who the author was. If he got carried away a little bit, he'd make things sound pretty good. It's like any kind of a book. There's fiction, and you can build up most any kind of a story if you want to, right? Mm-hmm. I like to stick with the facts of this about the war, and of course I'm a admirer of the Civil War. I had a great grandfather that fought in the Civil War. He was in Maryland Cavalry out of Frederick, Maryland, and I just happened to have his discharge papers from the service. He was a Confederate prisoner, and I have his saber that he used in the Army. So I've got some military background. In doing some back research, I found out that I have a great uncle who fought in the Revolutionary War too. So, wow. Things go back or go forward, whichever way you want to work at it. Yeah. Then I had a grandfather that he went out west. I don't know if you ever read about the Oklahoma land rush when the country, United States, gave away land out in the west. Well, my granddad went out there and he homesteaded right next to an Indian reservation. There's the map he used when he went out there. Wow. And he was there 14 years and then came back east. And luckily he met my grandmother and they got married. And I'm a prodigy of that marriage, yeah. That doesn't have anything to do with the war, but, that's all part of our heritage, I guess, right?
Yeah. What were your expectations at the end of the war as for world stability?
Well, we all hoped there would be stability with it, but that was to be the war to end wars. And as we well know, that didn't happen either. And I just don't think... we've had wars ever since time began. Look at the Bible, my gosh. They were fighting all the time. Samson took on the big giant. And, in one way or the other, there was fighting, no matter where. And I just don't think, I hate to say it this way, I just don't think we'll ever stop fighting. Because you and I get together and we disagree with something, well, it may escalate into a fight. And if we got people following us, well, then we've got more people involved. And I really hate to... I've got some great grandkids coming along, and I hate to see them caught up in all this mess, but I don't know what else is going to happen. I really don't. This thing over in Iran is horrible. They're trying to stop that bomb program there, and they don't seem to be... There I go again. Sorry about that.
Sorry. Do you have anything else to say about your experiences? Or?
I'm just lucky that I made it through, and I'm thankful to God that I made it through. Yeah. And I don't look at my service time as an infringement on my life. I think it was just a part of a phase of growing up, and I was thankful for it. Yeah.
Thank you so much for your time.
You mean that's it?
Yep.
Well, I thought you were going to ask me something hard here.